in John chapter 19, so it's the Gospel of John, towards the beginning of the New Testament. And chapter 19 is the big number 19, and we're starting at verse 25.
Now the cross of Jesus stood. Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there, and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to her, "Woman, here is your son." And to the disciple, "Here is your mother." From that time on, this disciple took her into his home. This is the word of the Lord.
Go on, get out. Last words are for fools who have not yet said enough. These are apparently the last words that philosopher Karl Marx voiced. I wonder what yours will be when you get to that moment. Will your last words be full of love? Will you try to express a message for all that you've learned in life? Will they be philosophical? Will they be comical? Will they be reflective? Will they be thought through, or will they fall out of your mouth as you come to them? In this passage, we hear some of Jesus' final words, and in them we hear his invitation to do life and faith as family and not as individuals. Over the past few weeks, we've been exploring some of the biggest questions about our identity and our purpose as we've looked at Jesus' encounters with various people throughout the Gospels. And this evening, we're thinking about the question, why should I care? Over Lent, we've thought about how to tune into God's voice. We've discovered that Jesus is the one who brings change in our lives, and that he is the one who meets our deepest thirst. And from that place today, we begin to look outward towards others as we explore the care that Jesus shows in this interaction between his mum and one of his closest friends as he's hanging on the cross. So this evening, I'd love to invite you to keep that passage open. It's just 3 verses long. But if you keep it open, you can look back and see those words for yourself. I'd love to speak into 3 things this evening that I think show us a little bit about who Jesus is and who he's calling us to be as we look at those words. First of all, we're invited into God's family. Secondly, we're invited to be family to each other across generations. And thirdly, this picture of care in this passage is only the very beginning. Over Lent, which is the 40 days before Easter, we journey towards celebrating Jesus' death and resurrection. The good news of Easter is that because of the cross, everyone is invited into God's family. Jesus' death on the cross makes a way for us to be united with God. We used to be separate from him because of the things that we get wrong. But because of Jesus' love and care, he chose not to leave us separated from him. Instead, he came and he lived among us. And he lived a perfect life in order that his death on the cross might become a way in which we can now choose to accept his love and be part of his family. On the cross, Jesus provided for our greatest need of all. His death provided a way for us to be forgiven and brought into his family. Whereas his children, we become loved, accepted, cared for, provided for, and we have a secure future in him. Because of Jesus' death and resurrection, we get to be part of God's family and know his care in our lives. In these verses from John's Gospel, Jesus forms a family in the middle of suffering and excruciating pain. He looks at his mum and he looks at his friend and he creates a new relationship between them. Not just teacher and follower, not just acquaintance, not even just friend, but family. He says, if you look at those verses, here is your mother, here is your son. Something new is happening in this moment. The cross is not only about forgiveness, it's about belonging to God's family. Through Jesus, God is not just saving individuals, he's building a household, he's building a family. Throughout the Bible, we see consistent references to Jesus being the person through which we get to be adopted, through which we get to be welcomed into family, through which we are brought near to God the Father. God isn't distant any longer. He becomes our Father, and we become brothers and sisters. We become family to one another. When I went into hospital to give birth to my 2 children, I took with me this blanket. It's one that my granny made, their great granny. And the day I brought them home, I carefully placed them in their car seats, worrying that I thought I might break them. And then I wrapped them like literal burritos in this thing. It's the only time I think kids look cute, actually, when you wrap them in a blanket like that. And whilst the blanket did help them stay warm and cozy, because they now face the outside world, it was also a picture of the love and the care that was now surrounding them. Where up until that point, they'd only been cared for by me, safe inside me. Now they were vulnerable. Now they might be cold. Now they might suffer from what goes on in the world around them. But this was a symbol that they were wrapped in love and care, not just mine, but actually hundreds of people. Not just my blood relatives, but friends, kids, young and old alike, coming around and supporting us as a family as we worked out what it meant to care for a new baby. As I've journeyed in my faith, I've had a whole army of people come alongside me, from youth leaders teaching me to pray, to family friends showing me what it means to follow Jesus even when it's really hard, to elderly couples in my church growing up who showed me what faithfulness looks like, each championing me, each encouraging me, loving me and caring for me, being there for me when I felt broken. You see, the cross, it opens a door into the family of God, through which I pray that you also will know love and care from those sat not just here today, but those throughout your life who will come alongside you. I pray that you would know, just like my kids wrapped like burritos, the care and the love of church family. At the cross, we're not just forgiven and made right with God. We're adopted. We look from the cross to one another as we become family to each other. As part of God's family, we're invited to be family to those across all generations, not just those that look and sound like us or at the same life stage as us, but across all generations. As a church, we've been thinking this year about what it means to grow in faith and grow in family. We know that growing in what it means to be family to one another across generations is a significant part of what God calls us as Christians to do, precisely because of the verses that we've read together today. From an account of Jesus' torture and death, we read in his dying moments that Jesus chooses to emphasize the importance of intergenerational care. In his account of Jesus' crucifixion, the gospel writer John, who we read today, he paints quite a harrowing picture of Jesus hanging on the cross, taking his last few gasps for air before breathing his last. And each time Jesus chooses to say something on that cross, he's using every ounce of his strength to pull himself up, to push down on the nails in his feet and pull himself up with the nails in his hand in order just simply to breathe, and yet to speak is even harder. He would be in significant pain to say these words. And yet in that agony, in that moment, he wants us to pay attention to the words that he shares. And it's here in these verses we read today that he invites us to care for each other, to care for one another's needs, to be family to each other. Imagine for a moment that you're Mary. Maybe you're stood down here and you've got a few people alongside you that have walked and journeyed with you in your life. And as you look at the cross as Jesus is dying there, how do you feel? You've grown this baby into a child, into a man, and now he's dying on a cross. How do you feel? Can you even look? Can you see the suffering that he's going through? Or do you need to turn away because it hurts? How do you even approach that moment? As Jesus sees his mum's sadness from the cross, he reaches out to her in her need with his heart full of compassion. See, as an older woman alive at that time, Mary had very few rights, and she had little opportunity to provide for herself. And so in that moment, as Jesus invites John to take her as his mum, Mary suddenly gains security and provision. John is able to provide her with support to live well. He's able to provide company in her sadness and care in her loneliness. Now imagine for a moment you're Jesus' friend John. Maybe you're knelt by the cross. Maybe you're hiding in the crowd. Maybe you're by yourself and you want to be alone. But as you look at the cross, how do you feel? You've been following this man for 3 years. You had all your hopes pinned on him saving your people, and yet he's dying. You're confused. You might feel alone. You don't understand what's going on. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you want him to fight. Maybe you want him to get down. How do you feel if you're John? John is about to experience deep, deep sadness. He's about to wrestle with lots of questions and feel incredibly confused. As Mary takes him as her son, John gains wisdom and insight from a woman who has walked with Jesus all the days of her life. Mary is able to offer to John a uniquely different experience of relationship with Jesus that will help him to grow in his own understanding of who he is. These verses make me wonder if God knows what we need most as we live out our faith here on earth is deep, family-rooted care for each other across all generations. Jesus is near the point of maximum pain. He's already completely humiliated as he's naked on the cross. And in that moment, I think he could be totally forgiven for concentrating on himself and all that he's about to face. And yet that's precisely the moment where he invites his mum and his friend to care for one another. Jesus shows us what becoming family is supposed to look like. He offers a new way of living out our faith. He invites us to care for one another as if we were each other's family. In our household, we have some blankets near our sofa, and this is one of them. And we use this blanket basically if we're watching TV or if we're playing Pokemon with our kids. And we wrap it around ourselves. Does anyone else have one of these near their sofa or where they sit and enjoy whatever they're doing? We sit as a family on our sofa and we put it across our legs. But what it means is I have to tell my kids to shuffle up. I have one child that would live under my eyelids if he could, and I have another child that, like me, does not like physical touch. And yet, when we get this blanket out, we all have to shuffle up together to be able to rest underneath it. We get to feel cozy and loved. I get a bit touched out and don't massively like it, but it's one of the ways that as a family we enjoy time together. It's not accidental that Jesus sets up intergenerational care. He invites us to shuffle up on the metaphorical sofa together, to form closer relationship with each other, to wrap one another in care and love as if we were blood relatives. When I was in my early 20s, I just started working for a church. My parents lived 2.5 hours away. I wasn't yet married to Ben, and I lived by myself, and I'd had a horrible week where I felt like I'd fallen out with everybody. And I turned up to church feeling really isolated and alone. But there was a family in church who knew me well. And my friend Steve, he said, "Juliette, come and sit with us this morning." And so I sat in church with the parents on my left and their 2 young kids on my right. They didn't say anything to me other than invited me to come and sit with them. They didn't even ask how my week had been. They didn't have a clue what had gone on. They just created space for me to be with them. And I can't tell you how much I felt like I was part of their family in that moment. So much so that nearly 15 years on, I can still remember what that felt like. We are not just people who attend the same service or who share beliefs. We are a family. where generations belong to one another, where as the young we need wisdom, guidance, and vulnerability shared so that we can learn from the lessons that others have also learned. Those of us who are a little bit older need to hear the passion and the excitement, the stories of what God is doing and where he's at work. We need people to form friendship, but more than that, to form deep family with one another. We need spiritual mothers and fathers and spiritual sons and daughters so that no one is left standing alone at the foot of the cross. In a world where generations so often are separated, we have different spaces, different communities, different conversations. The cross of Jesus brings us together, and he invites us to be family to one another. I don't know about you, but the reality of my life is that there are things in my life that I need to receive others' care in. There are things that I find hard. There are moments where I'm totally broken and I need help. There are times where I just need encouragement. I wonder where it is tonight where you need care. For some of us, it might be that we just need someone to talk to. Maybe a friend. For some of us, it might be that we need practical support in some way. Maybe we need help from a uni friend or a colleague in our work settings. For others, we might just need genuine practical help, like someone offering to go to the shops for you or to cook a meal for you. Or maybe, if you're like me, you might want someone to offer to babysit for you. At the cross, we see Mary and John set up to care for one another, practically, emotionally, and spiritually. John tells us that from that moment, he took Mary into his home. It's a beautiful picture of real hospitality, but also John taking genuine responsibility for Mary. This type of care for one another is only the very beginning. You see, the cross creates a new kind of family community. In the early church, believers shared homes, they shared resources, they shared meals, they shared one another's burdens. They literally gave everything for the sake of the other. They cared for widows, they welcomed strangers, and they treated one another as family. Jesus makes a way for us to truly care for each other because of his great love poured out for us on the cross. His love for us becomes a new place from which we can hold one another's cares. As he invites us to be family to each other, we are bound together by his love. I don't know if you've noticed, they're not here this evening, but there's a group of men that sit and they pray at the back. They're a little bit older, although I do refer to them as lads, which they were totally fine with when I said that. But if you've ever been blessed by someone that is a little bit older than you, who's come alongside you, mentored you, encouraged you in your faith, would you come and hold a little bit of this blanket for me? It's not a trick question, I promise you. I don't know if you've noticed, but there are people who behave like spiritual parents to us, who champion us, who pray for us, who encourage us. I don't know if you've noticed, but there are people who invite others for coffee to come alongside and support and encourage. I don't know if you've seen that there are families who invite students round for meals so that they can experience the delight of young people screaming at the dinner table, but also invite you into what it means to be family. I don't know if you've seen, but maybe in some of our morning services, you may have noticed teenagers coming alongside some of the younger ones that run around and go a bit crazy in the services. We are joined and connected by his love because of Jesus' death on the cross. We become a family that is able to support, carry, and care for one another in a new way. You see, this blanket that each person is now holding onto becomes the new way in which we can hold others' cares. It becomes a place in which not only those around this blanket, but others of us in this room can put our cares And their burden is light because it's shared as a family. It's a place in which we can begin to look outwards to the needs and cares of our city. Thank you so much, guys. If you want to just pass that to me and you can go and take your seats. I promised you it wasn't a trick question. You see, because of Jesus' love and that invitation to be family to one another, we create a new place from which we can express radical care to one another, each pulling and holding and playing our part. Other than people your own age, I wonder, do you know the needs of those around you where they need to know that they belong to a family? I wonder, do you know who is feeling lonely and isolated and needs someone to share life with? I wonder if you spotted anyone who looks like they're hurting and in pain and needs comfort. I wonder if you've noticed anyone who's anxious about their future and what to do next and might just need a word of encouragement. I wonder, could you spend time after this service or during the week intentionally building relationship, not just with those that you see here and now, not just those that are sat right next to you, but maybe those that are across the room from you, those that you've yet to speak to and introduce yourself to. How might you care this week for someone else? How might you look out for them? How might you encourage them? How might you be someone like family who comes alongside and holds their burdens and their cares? At the cross, Jesus brings together diverse people, men and women, young and old, blood relatives and others, and invites us not only to his family, but to be family to one another. Jesus' love is the key that unlocks what it means to be family. At the cross, new relationships are created, and people respond to Jesus' invitation to show care for one another. Whether family has been straightforward for you growing up or really rather complicated, whether it's been broken and messy or loving and easy, whether you're still working through things, whether you feel like all hope is lost, or you're working hard on rebuilding family relationships, wherever you find yourself, you're invited into God's family. You're invited to be family with one another. And from that place, we get to show genuine love and care to each other, not just for the benefit of those in this room, but for the benefit of our city, for the benefit of our work colleagues, those that we study with, those that are far beyond ever walking into this building. You see, this new family that is created at the cross between Mary and John is just the very beginning. It's a picture of intergenerational care that through Jesus' death is now thrown open to all. That includes you, but it includes the person that maybe next week might be sat on a seat near you. Jesus' invitation to family is genuine. How will you respond to it? I'd love to invite you to stand and we're going to pray together.